Hello, hello. Happy New Year. I don't know if you're supposed to say Happy New Year at the end of January, but anyway, we haven't spoke much this year yet.
Yeah,
So Happy New
yeah.
Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah, I think we're probably the last people that are allowed to say it because, it's
Yeah,
almost the end of January. But yeah, it's good to see you. I'm excited for the year.
yeah. Yeah, me too. And listen, the reason I wanted to make sure I say Happy New Year to you because we're going to talk about something that is related to starting a new year. And although it's going to go out and our audience will listen, hopefully still in January, but maybe in February, I just wanted to give that context that we're going to talk about a momentum that is created in New Year, right?
Right. That's right.
So, so listen, before we dive into today's topic, we wanted to share with our audience that we have a theme that we were thinking of for this year, right? So according to the theme, I changed my background as well. You may notice it. And our theme, we said we're gonna kind of walk around, dance around, is personal development, and hopefully we can do it in a super engaging way that yeah, it's going to be inspiring for us, but also people who listen to us, they're going to see that this is not just a must do for someone who really takes care of their talent and their career, but also it's fun, it's energizing. And yeah, so our not so secret ambition that we make people fall in love with their own personal development.
Yeah, I
What do you
think,
think?
yeah, personal development is one of those things that, especially at the beginning of the year, I almost think that corporate has trained us to kind of only look at it during certain points in time. I think at January, beginning of the year, there's objective setting, development setting that you have for the year. There's kind of like this mid-year point where maybe you have a conversation with your manager, how is it tracking? But what ends up happening is by the time you get to the end of the year, all the focus is on more of the business and the performance of the business projects, things like that. And personal development almost becomes this afterthought that at the end of the year, it's like, oh, yeah, let's make sure we discuss this, how we feel. But a lot of times people haven't been really focusing on building their personal development plan throughout the year. It's these, two or
Yeah,
three points in time. So I think, what I love about this idea is that we're going to bring a fresh perspective, a different topic in personal development every month, and we're going to try to tie it to business calendars, right? So
yeah,
we have lived in business. We understand the importance of quarter ends and month ends and things like that, but we're going to try to bring a lens of personal development at that time of the year so that it becomes relevant.
yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah,
it'll be a fun,
yeah.
journey.
Fantastic. And, I have one personal commitment because, being an HR in HR for 26 years, I had the not so beautiful duty of chasing people about their development plans and, harassing everyone that have you, had your development conversation? Have you put it in the system and so on? So I'm sure those who are listening to us will I remember those lovely moments when their HR have been, chasing them. And it turned the whole development thing into a chore, right? Which,
Right.
if you think about it, it's crazy. That's, you know, it's the polishing our asset. It's a diamond that should
Yeah.
be in the center of our thoughts every morning we wake up. That's our, most important thing that we turn into value, we turn into respect, we turn into money. So this is our commitment that we're gonna try to avoid making it sound like a chore, and we want to bring some fresh, inspiring perspective. All right, so just wanted to put that up front. And on that note, I want to link back to the beginning of our conversation when we said that, you know, the beginning of the year is a special momentum. And I know that some people love New Year resolutions. Some people just say, leave me alone with it. I don't know. Do you do New Year resolutions?
I think when someone asks me, do you have a New Year's resolution? I'll be able to describe what my goal is for the year, but I don't like this idea of we turned from December 31st to January 1st, and now all of a sudden we should have these new goals that appear.
Yeah.
My thought is always around November, December, I'm already trying to start new things, and
Yeah.
because then there's not this heaviness of like it has to work. And if you get to
Yeah,
mid-January and you're not doing it, you failed, right? I think you can be a little bit more relaxed about it. It's, what you want to accomplish this year.
yeah,
But yeah, well, I do it loosely. How about yourself?
yeah. Well, I loved the idea that something, bring my intention to something at the beginning of the year. But I will be super honest, 9 out of 10, I failed my New Year resolution. So I don't really have a good experience with it. And I also noticed that the minute I kind of put out a really detailed plan and
Mhm.
I felt caged immediately. So my free spirit just could not stick to it. So I've been looking around, especially in my job being a coach, I hear, many strategies my clients are sharing with me, my colleagues are sharing with me. And I came to a really interesting concept. Actually, it wasn't connected to the personal development, but it was more about other aspects of life. I noticed that people tend to do short sprints at the beginning of the year because let's be honest, this is a momentum, it's a fresh start. It somehow feels easier to take a bigger breath and reflect on a year. And you may have this experience in the US as well, but people around Europe here, they like to do a kind of dry January when they kind of stop drinking for a month. It doesn't mean they're gonna continue that over the year, but at least for a month, it's just to try something to give a perspective, also to detox from the previous years,
Yeah.
especially the year end shenanigan, craziness. And another thing in my family, they do veganoir, which is like they go vegan for a month,
Mhm.
and it also has a health perspective. Clearly, again, a detox element. But there is another perspective. Is like we all hear a lot about how going vegan may help actually the earth to be a bit more sustainable for us as
Sure.
human race, and it's a big commitment to give up on meat for us. We in our family we love our meat, but we always think, if you try for a month, that's kind of sounds doable. And we will see. Maybe we fall in love with it. And some family members, they actually turned into vegan.
Mm.
So I thought, what if we bring this approach to personal development and instead of saying that, okay, here is your New Year resolution, you're gonna need to do this, and then, fail and shove it under the carpet. We invite our audience to think about what is the thing that you could experiment with for a month that might be
Mm.
good for your development. And we also said that let's apply this approach of detox and think back of your previous year and imagine what could you live without easily and what would be good for your soul, your body, your mind, your career, if you would stop doing. What would you detox from? So is there anything on your mind around this? What do you think about this
Yeah, I
approach?
think I think it's a really interesting topic because you're right. I think for a lot of us coming out of the holidays, we either have too much fun or we feel like, it's an opportunity to kind of restart the system, your health, all that good stuff. So we do, in the US, we do dry January detoxes and all those things to kind of help, almost recharge the spirit. It's funny because at least in the U.S. culture, we also have the Super Bowl, which is, American football. That is usually in February. So everyone will detox and have a nice dry January, and then right at the beginning of February, we're right back into it, right? Because we got our Super Bowl, we have our football. But yeah, it's very common, and I think when you brought this topic up, it was interesting, right? Because when we go back to work in January, there is this tendency to kind of start the process up again, kick the business off, let's go back into the routine, the processes, the way we operated last year. And for a lot of us, I think we all have said this by mid-January, we feel like, oh, the holidays were months ago and we're back into it. And it feels like it might be March or April or May, right? And
Mm,
the holidays is a long, low, long and almost forgotten thing. But I think the question here is there one thing that you can carry into the new year at work that could be a change of behavior? It could be a way that you do things differently. And, without committing to doing it for a full year, why not try it out for just the month of January, right? So it's just like we do dry January. Maybe there's something in your career that you can just implement. And I think we can get into the conversation around, is it visible, invisible? Do you bring your manager in? Do you not? And I think, it's a very interesting topic. So I'm excited to tackle it for this month.
Brilliant, super. So yeah, let's think about what could that be? Like, tell me an example. What comes to your mind, either that is relevant for you or something that,
Yeah.
is more general, because what we want to make sure that these things you may want to keep it private, often
Yeah.
not talking about it, just holding it close to your chest. That's the best thing to do. So often we ask people to share, their reflections. This is specifically a topic that we may just want to keep it to ourselves. So if you fear to share anything that
Yeah.
is relevant for you, do so, or just bring up something that you feel like it's relevant to this idea.
Yeah, so Junji, I think there's kind of three buckets in my mind of, different ways you can implement this. One is around self-productivity. So this is all around the idea of, are you on top of your projects? Are you organized? Do you feel like your emails, the way you manage your meetings, the way you manage your time is effectively used, right? And I think for a lot of us at the end of the year, we feel burnt out. We feel like we're not in control of our calendars. There's lots of meetings on that. And then all of a sudden, there's 1 or 2 weeks where there's nothing. And then you come back, and, if you're not careful, January will look just like November and December in terms of a bunch of meetings get placed on
Yeah.
the calendar. We hit right into the routine. So I do think productivity around, how do you start your morning? Do you want to block out your calendar and actually set aside time for yourself to organize your thoughts, organize your to-do list before the day gets crazy? There's also the idea of, when you join meetings and you get action items, are you taking time at the end of the day to decompress, look through your list, prioritize your topics, or are you just saying yes to everything and just growing a to-do list on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday you're trying to figure out, did I even accomplish anything, or did I just say yes to 15 things? And then
Mm.
Monday it starts all over again, right? So I think productivity is a really good one. The second one is all around relationships. So
Mm.
imagine delivering work through other departments. If you've worked with other teams, how were those relationships? Maybe something's toxic, maybe something's not an effective relationship and it was difficult last year. And this year you want to set it off on the right foot. And I think having those meetings, setting expectations with partners and cross-functional teams, it could be a really interesting one. And then the last one is more around your personal career aspirations for the year. So do you want to be promoted this year? Do you want that big project you've been hoping for? Do you want to have a conversation with your manager around line management and getting people reporting into you? Whatever those big career milestones are, this is also a great time to start thinking through, okay, what does that mean for me in January? What does that mean for me in February? Is there a conversation I need to have with my manager that maybe I have avoided or didn't feel prepared or ready for? So, in my mind, there's these three buckets. It's, personal productivity, relationships, and then career promotions, advancement. That usually comes to mind.
Yeah, yeah, love it. And okay, staying with your last example, like avoiding career conversations or just getting to the end of the year without having a true, meaningful debate with your line manager about your next move. The detox move could be stop avoiding it. And what if
That's
for 1 month, or you can set for how long? I'm not gonna avoid any difficult conversations that is, that I suspect it needs to happen, but I'm kind of shying away from it. What if I
Yeah.
don't avoid or stop
Yeah,
avoiding?
that's exactly right. Sometimes the difficult, awkward conversations are the ones that, if you have it as soon as possible in the beginning of the
Yeah,
year, you're kind of back in the driver's seat, as opposed to
yeah.
someone that's waiting and hoping someone will mention something or ask me what I think about my career development this year, right? I think the other thing to consider is, at the end of the year, you probably had a performance review, and there might be things that your manager mentioned that, you need to improve upon, potentially things that maybe you didn't agree with. And you decided that you were just going to say, okay, you know what, that's the performance review, but now is your time to set expectations with your manager. I want to show up differently. I want to have different behaviors. I want to address some of the performance things that were mentioned at the end of year, right? So this is a great time to be able to bring all that forward.
So it all sounds really sensible, right? Um, Nothing new about it. Yet, most of us don't do it. So
That's
why
right.
why we need to wait for a beginning of a year or a big momentum? Why we need to kind of trick ourselves into trying something, around it? Why we are just not doing it?
I think we're all human, right? So intentionality is the critical part of this, is that we need to make sure that we have an idea of exactly when are we going to be able to actually have the intentional decision to be able to go in and make a significant change. One of the most important things to consider is, you know, when you get back into the year, there's no opportunity better than now to be able to do all of these things that we talk about. And the biggest thing is that when a new project or a job starts, you know, we fall into the trap of doing exactly what we always done. So the project kicks off, we have a kickoff meeting, all of a sudden all the responsibilities and the tasks are there. So I think it's natural for us to fall into this trap of like just get back to the status quo, exactly how we did it before.
Yeah,
And we kind of deprioritize our needs. Like, the
yeah.
business needs me or I need to work on this project or something like that. And yeah, I think it's just human nature that we fall into kind of traps of, the existing processes. What do you think?
And yeah, absolutely. Also, we prefer the familiar over the unfamiliar. And if we've been in this, cycle for too long, then we may have got used to it. And even if we hate it, at least we know how to do it. And we keep repeating the same thing. And trying something new is like if you're right-handed, you try to write with your left hand. Even if it's good for you, it hurts at the beginning. And we try to avoid pain with growth, even if we know that there are benefits further down the line. So that's why I actually love the idea that we tell ourselves, just try for a month,
Hmm.
try and see what happens. And a lot of things can happen. A It can become easier, right? You try it, beginning really painful, but you say, you know what, couple of more days, and then I'm done with it. And then you might find yourself in a situation that, well, actually, it's getting better and better.
Yeah.
Or you can figure out that, you know what, it wasn't the right goal. I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. It sounded good on paper, but I'm definitely not going to do it. And that's also data. That's also information. You can tick that you can tick that off from your list, and that you may end up thinking you need a different goal, that maybe you thought too much from this situation. Maybe that's not the answer to your problems. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think even if it's a New Year's resolution on your personal life, if it's too bold and ambitious and big, and you're not able to break it down into smaller pieces, it feels like it's unachievable. Like, you're climbing a mountain, right? So, how do we take something like you want to develop yourself, which is a very big topic, and then we chunk it out into sections, right? So every month you try something new. And that's going to be the importance of our podcast, is that we're going to cover off a different topic every month. I think this one should very much be manageable and something you can feel like you're making progress in a couple of weeks, right? Because if this requires you to present to, let's say, leadership, and it's a really big kind of priority for you, it's probably not something you can test out in January. Like there's probably a big meeting that you're working towards that might be later in the year. And if it's around visibility to leadership, then what's the smaller version of that? How, maybe it's around progress on your projects in a way that it's visible, or connecting the dots on enterprise issues or topics that your leadership is talking about and bringing it into your project, right? Like there's different
yeah.
ways to kind of take something that's big and audacious and make it more manageable in the first month. So I think, having something that you feel like you can see progress in a couple of weeks is probably the best way to think about it. And then it can build on itself, right? You see that progress, you want
Yeah.
to do more, and you continue to kind of get momentum behind it versus I tried to do something really big and I didn't make any progress in 2 weeks, so I'm going to put it aside and, forget about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, so thanks for reminding us that we're going to have interesting topics coming in the year, and most of them will be about trying new things. So, you can have your plate getting fuller and fuller and doing another thing and trying another thing. This is a very unique momentum when we are asking you to do less, actually, to stop doing something. So here is our invite, guys, to start elaborate on what could you detox from your system right now, from your career, from your practice, from your way of working, and let's move into how to do it.
Mm.
So I liked what you said about smaller, like chopping it up or making smaller bites that you can chew. Is there a best practice you have? How do you do that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about best practice. I think we can talk about what we've seen work, right? Whether it's with our teams, our clients, or ourselves. I think the big one is always what's the role of your manager in what you're trying to accomplish. So I think there's certain things that could be visible, and you almost want to enroll your manager at the very beginning to say, I'm going to try something different. So in meetings, you're going to see
Mm-hmm.
me summarize things or take the time to ask questions. And that's something that I'm trying that's new. So, manager, please, if you're in the room, understand that I'm trying something and help me and support me in those things, right? So, it could be speaking up in meetings, it could be saying no to projects. So, maybe you and your manager have had a conversation around you're taking on too much and you have too many priorities. So, how do you say no in a way that's respectful? So, maybe you're trying something in meetings with other partners and your manager can step in and say, I support that decision. I agree. We should not do that right now and help with that. Then there's others where it's kind of invisible because maybe it's a relationship you're trying to improve. Maybe it's something that you don't feel comfortable sharing. And that's okay too. But I think that's always the first place I start is this objective or what I'm trying to accomplish in personal development something that I can recruit my manager to be a part of? Or do I need to kind of do this under the radar, try it, see if it works for me before I even mention to anyone that I'm doing it, right? But yeah, what's an idea from your side?
Yeah, yeah. So I like to write it down. I for actually what works for me is to create a little manifesto to myself, and I like to connect it to why am I doing this and what are my hopes around stopping something, and what are my fears around this. And if I do that right up front, I feel like a lot of self what's the word for it, like the kind of instinct of rejecting the idea comes down.
Mm,
Again, as I mentioned, I don't like to feel caged, even
yeah.
when I try to cage myself. And if I straight away say, okay, so this is what I want to try, and these are my hopes, these are my fears about it, it brings relaxation to me, and I
Mm.
feel like, okay, this is no cage, the doors are open. It's an experiment, and then curiosity comes up, and then I think curiosity is the best approach to trying something new, either stopping something or starting something.
No, I think that's a good idea, right? And I think for a lot of people, writing something down drives a little bit more personal accountability. And then
Yeah,
also, when it starts to get tough or it starts to feel hard, it almost grounds you on purpose, right? Like, why am I doing
yeah,
this? Why was this important at the beginning of the month that I got there? And I think that could be fairly motivating, right? Especially if it's a hard thing you're trying to accomplish, like repairing a relationship or changing what people think about you from a perception standpoint.
yeah.
It might feel tough, and then you might have to remind yourself. So I like that idea.
Exactly, exactly. And linking it to your thought about bringing the manager in or not, that could be for some people, could be a hope or could be a fear,
Yeah.
and something that we don't have an answer to right now because that needs to be carefully measured. Certain, experiments work better when you bring a liaison along, but sometimes, you want to keep it close to your chest because you're working through something that is, impacting the relationship you have with your line manager. So use your judgment, I would say, and writing a little bit, journaling around your hopes and fears could be something that help you to clarify whether share it or not to share.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think, staying kind of nimble and making sure that you kind of continue to read what you need because maybe in the beginning of the month you didn't think you needed your manager and then you tried a couple of things and you're realizing, well, actually no, I do need support here. So it's okay to also change your mind, right? You might have started
Yeah,
with this idea that it needed to be invisible. And I'm going to
yeah,
try to do it on my own. And then you realize, actually, no, it's going to be hard to accomplish if I don't recruit my
yeah,
manager. So I think
yeah,
give yourself the grace also to reconsider
yeah,
halfway through as opposed to just giving up, you know?
yeah. The other thing that works really well for me is to celebrate micro successes. So when I catch myself, doing or not doing what I committed to try, and I did it, irrespective of the outcome, I just gave a little thumbs up to myself and say, you've done exactly what you promised yourself to do. You don't need to worry about the outcome just yet. Just reward that. Okay, it was different how I used to approach something, and yet I tried it. And the little self-reward could actually help to repeat the process.
Mm. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh, brilliant. All right. So we talked about the challenging question, what if we do a detox from our career, or a behavior in our career for a good reason for a month? We talked about why we are not doing it, if it makes so sense. We talked about, okay, if we want to try it, how to do it. So I think there is nothing left than ask our listeners to think about what could be the one thing that you could detox from. Think about your behaviors or your relationships, your practices, and see if you find something that has been already on your radar, something that would be probably good stop doing, but it was just too hard to think about to put an end to it altogether. Maybe this is the time that you could experiment with doing it for a short period of time and see how it goes.
Yeah, that's right. And, make sure that you're thinking about why you're doing it, why this is important to you, because naturally what will happen is after a few weeks, you start to get projects, assignments, all the work
Yeah.
hours start to fill up with meetings and everything else. And it's easy to say, well, this was not something that, was that big of a deal. So let me put it aside. No, well, maintain that priority on yourself as all the other business priorities start to get added to your list, right? It's our choice on whether or not we prioritize personal development. So January is a great way to start the process.
Brilliant. All right. So are you going to do that
I
for
am. So
yourself?
I'll tell you exactly what I try to do every year is
Okay.
I always try to block out the first 2 hours of my calendar for myself to be able to
Mm.
prioritize projects, think about things, what needs to be accomplished today. And what's always difficult for me is that meetings get placed on those calendars. You have to meet with this group or this team is only available during those hours. And naturally, over time, it chips away. It becomes 1 hour. Then it becomes, let me wake up even earlier so it's an hour that no one wants to have a meeting. But, I still try to hold on to those 2 hours whenever I can. But yeah, I'm going to try it again. And I think every year I try to get a little bit better at that. How about you?
Yes, so my January detox, or now it's gonna lean into February, but my beginning of the year detox will be try to stop sitting in front of my computer more than 3 hours a day, which is a
Oh,
big
wow.
challenge because I coach. in
Yes.
front of the computer. So I don't know how I'm gonna do that. I might be standing in front of the computer. I may need to do walk and talk meetings, but this is my commitment. I moved to a new house, so I have more space. I will use my creativity to figure it out, but that's what I want to stop doing. No more than 3 hours in front of the laptop.
Yeah, good luck. That's all I could say. Yeah, I think we all have a similar one is like just move a little bit more, right? Like
Yeah,
let's be
yeah,
careful about how, sedentary we are with computers and everything
yeah,
else. Fantastic.
exactly. All right, brilliant. So have a lovely rest of the day and looking forward to catch up with you on our next topic.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, John G.
All right. Thank you. Take care, guys.